So when I decided to buy this mill, it was stationary, so it was just a guy's farm, and he was using it. And I don't know if you can see here, but we're in suburbia, which is just where we gotta live at the moment. But basically, if I wanted to pick this thing up, I had no way to get it out of the bed of my truck. I didn't have a trailer at the time, like a flatbed long enough to hold it. And then even when we did get it, it's a Timberking, and Timberkings are kind of known for having the big steel structure. So they're not as easy as some of the other mills when it comes to just picking up all the parts, setting them down by yourself, maybe getting a buddy. Like I think this one as is like 3,500 pounds, and that's just for 3 sections and the head. So each section is like 750 pounds or something ridiculous like that. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but anyways, in order for me to pick it up, I knew that I had to make it a trailer, and obviously there's plenty of 1220 trailers out there, so the design is already there for how to turn it into a trailer, but we couldn't buy the kit because they didn't have it for sale on their website. I called customer service and they never got back to me, so not a big deal. It probably would have cost me way more anyways. So I got all the steel cut at a local shop. I watched one YouTube video from a guy who was kind of showing you around his trailer setup. I'll try and link it if I can find it, but I couldn't find any good pictures of it. There was definitely no videos on how to make a trailer for this one, at least that I saw. So not a big deal. I was just trying to pretty much mimic the design from the factory because it's super simple. But basically, instead of it being the mill sitting on a trailer, it uses the mill as the trailer, and you just add a few supports, a tongue, an axle, and then obviously like trailer lights. So I'm going to show you a couple parts that I used, and then some things that I would do again or would do differently in the future. So to give you a background on the trailer portion of it, to get it totally trailerable was about $1,000, a little bit under, but that includes buying the axles, buying the wheels, buying all the steel, including for the tongue, buying all the wiring, lights, things like that. So buying this mill new from the factory is $11,000, I think, $10.99 or whatever. The wait time is a year or however long it is, so obviously I couldn't wait for a year. So it's $11,000, and that's for it just to be stationary, and the trailer package was, I think, $14,000. So if you can do this yourself, which I'll give you a little background on it in just a minute, this is really not complicated. Like a fairly beginner welder can do this and have it all put together for a third or less than it's going to cost to buy the trailer package from the factory. Like I said, they didn't even offer that for sale. I couldn't even find it for sale. So this is actually the welder that I use to do literally everything. It's titanium. I think it's a 125 flux core welder, or what does that say? Easy flux 125. I cannot say enough good things about this welder. So and it's done everything. This is a log loader here. I haven't painted it, haven't even faced the hoses in the right direction and tied them up yet, but this welder says it can do up to 3/16. That's its max. To put it in perspective, so the amperage on this goes to J. That's the amperage on top, and that's the wire speed on the bottom. So when I did this gusset right here that I'm about to show you, I was on F and a wire speed of like 7. So that was the settings that was used to do this. And like I said, getting a little rusty in there, but you can see, it's easier to see on this, but plenty of penetration. Like I said, it said it can do 3/16 as a max, and it'll zoom in. So this is 1/4 inch stuff. and it did it literally no problem. It's all 1/4 inch. I should have polished it off for you ahead of time. But it welded everything on here. So this plate is a 3/16 inch plate on 1/8 inch plate. And like I said, I'm not a welder, so don't hold it against me, but no problem. So I say all that because a lot of people also have the idea like I can't get into it. I bought that welder for full price, which I think normally you get them on sale, but I paid full price for it. It was $200, and then, you know, a regular welding helmet, so another $50. I grew up welding a little bit, but haven't welded in a long time. Super easy to get back into it, and it's done everything on this trailer. I haven't even tripped the duty cycle a single time, and I'm about 10 pounds into the wire, so I've gone through a fair amount of wire doing all the welding stuff on here. Alright, so I'm working on making this fully hydraulic. As you can see, we got our valves back there. Most of them still haven't put caps on it, but I've turned the pumps on, and that's why we have a little bit of leakage. As you can see, there's some leakage out of the valves, but it's from these plastic caps. They said there would be some internal leakage. I was kind of shocked how much there was, so I ordered some caps. They were supposed to, or plugs. They were supposed to come in the mail already, but they haven't. As soon as the plugs come in, I'll make sure to like take another video so that you guys can see what the hydraulics look like functioning. But right now, every time I turn the pump on, it just kind of leaks more oil than it probably should. So I'm gonna wait to take any videos on that for a little while. Alright, so there's basically 3 parts that were needed in order for it to go down the road, and that is the axle section, the mid section, and then the tongue. So I'm going to go around to the other side because the lighting's a little better. But we'll start back here with the axle because it's obviously the most important part of driving. So for the axle system, I'm not sure how their bigger mills are, but on the 1220s it looked like they were all torsion axles, so there were no leaf springs or anything like that. But as you see, this one also has so everywhere there's a connector, so it connects here, it connects there. Everywhere there's a connector, there's room for the feet. So that's what that bolt is. That's what that bolt is. Obviously they're not feet now. At one point they were feet. And even on the factory ones, this is how they're connected. But all this is 2-inch angle iron. So this is 2-inch. Every bit of angle iron is 2-inch through here, and it's 1/8 inch thick. So that's the first thing I would do over again if I did it again, was probably just do 3/16 or 1/4 inch. Like this is working just fine because it's really not used very much for structural support. It's just an extra support, and 1/8 inch is still plenty sturdy. But basically it's this 1/8 inch angle, 2-inch wide, and then right here this is a 2-inch tube. This is 1/8 inch stuff too, but obviously since it's a tube, it's a lot more stout. And that just provides support so that when you jack up the jacks right here, when you put them up and down, if that tube wasn't there, and I didn't put it on at first, I noticed the factory had them, but if you didn't put it on and you have thinner or even fairly thick angle, it'll bend, it'll just flex right here in the middle. So you put that tube on and everything works just fine. So as far as the axle goes, you notice that it's bolted here, like I said, but there's nowhere for it to bolt back in here. So you'll have to excuse some of the mess, but like I said, there will be a video on the hydraulics in a little while. But basically these axles, I think I can still see the label on one of them. So yeah, you can kind of see that. Anyways, these are just torsion axles. Got them on Amazon. I think E-Trailer has them too. Some other trailer places have them. They're really convenient. Obviously, they're usually made to bolt on. I welded them. But basically, I just welded it onto that angle iron on the bottom, and then also here on the sides. The bed rails are also 2-inch wide. That's why you can't really see the angle sticking out. It's kind of dark. We'll look at this side. So I'm also not much of a welder, so don't hold any of that against me. But if you didn't have, this is the main part, is this 2-inch tube. Like, you need that 2-inch square tubing. I would not do anything other than square tubing for this. Because obviously, if you didn't have it, when you put weight on the wheels, they would just flex in like that. And I've driven this all down a lot of bumpy roads at this point, and a lot of potholes, and there is absolutely no issue with this. But the fact that there's no leaf springs makes it a whole lot lower to the ground and easier to maneuver. So, big fan of these axles. Like I said, they're off Amazon. Alright, so similar to the axle, this is just the centerpiece. So obviously you could have as many of these as you have sections. But all this is a piece of 1/8 inch thick. Then again, I would do 3/16. It's about 2 feet long, give or take, 20 inches, something like that. And then it just has 2 pieces of 1/8 inch angle that run, I think the bed's 37 inches wide, and then 1 2x2 square tubing. And that just keeps the jacks from torquing the angle iron. So the jacks go on there no problem. They just kind of are welded to the angle, and then they wrap back around. So one thing that I would do again, I would not get the pipe weld. I would definitely get these plates. So the plate jacks are a much better option, in my opinion, for stability than the pipe weld ones, the ones where you weld a pipe and then there's a pin where you can twist it. So these kind of lock up right there. They lock up really tight. I did have to cut a little bit off the end of all these pins just so it fits in there better. But I'll take you up. I put a... So obviously they make different quality ones, but I did just put one on the front just to make it easier to hook up to the trailer. But you see how much play is in that? I think you'll find that on most of the corner jacks, I'll let this one down a little bit, but there's just much more lockup when they actually receive tension. The mill is really sturdy. That's probably really hard to see on the video, but by having these plate weld ones, and this is a 3x3 square tube with a 5-inch plate just welded on the end to seal it up. I think that's the right move. So the trailer tongue is just a 3x3, and they all have holes. I don't know if you can see that there. Every bunk has holes already drilled into it. So this is just angle that's bolted on. And it holds the tongue in place just fine. I think that's all you really need, is about 2 bunks to hold it in place. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is, and I put these on after I got it back home. The one in the front is a little bit different from the one in the back, but they're almost identical. So these are really easy. If you use 3x3 for your tongue, which I recommended, it's just much stronger and not much price difference. I recommend using 3x3 for this cross piece in the front. So your corners, your 4 corners are definitely the most important for actually getting it leveled, and then the ones in the middle should just be there to kind of snug it up. All this is a 3x3 post. It sits, you can see if you look down the mill, it sits a little wider than some of the ones back there. And the ones along the way don't hit the head at all, even when it's down all the way. But the wide and lower to the ground is much nicer, so that your jacks aren't fully extended, kind of like that one is. It's not fully extended, but it's close. And these are just 10-inch jacks. But so all this is there is a hole drilled and a nut welded on there. It's, I think, a 1/2-inch bolt, and it's just to hold it up. It doesn't really even have to do that much structurally, even though it definitely can hold it structurally. If you use 3-inch for this, you should use 3-inch for that. That way when you do this, you have to cut out a notch so that the tongue will fit down through there. I guess if you use 2.5, you wouldn't have to do that, but my steel shop didn't have 2.5. But then, because it was the same size, I was able to cut out the notch and then just basically flip it 90 degrees, place it upside down, and just weld it back in there, so that this is all 100% sealed. So unless some water kind of trickles its way in through this bolt, this end cap is sealed. It should be pretty much sealed up. This is ridiculously sturdy with this plate welded really 360 degrees all the way around it. I highly recommend doing that. And then on the back is pretty much the same thing. Has it, like I said, I'm still back here. It's a work in progress with the hydraulics, but that way it gives you a place to mount your hydraulics if you decide to do that. All this needs to get cleaned up and painted still. And the last thing I want to talk about is holding down the head, and this is something that I would do again. I'm about to change it. It's worked for the time being, but I'm going to change it. So this is what I'm using to hold down the head right now, and if I'm going to change this, it's working for now, but I am going to change it. So basically the mill comes up kind of like you see right there, and let me get you to where you can see it. But this is welded on at the factory, because this is how they normally do their trailering. I think they do it a little different than the way I did it, but I think they have a bolt that comes down through here and hooks into something else on the trailer. But if you buy these, or if you just weld a piece of angle iron on a similar fashion, there were already holes drilled on the torsion axles, so I just use this. All this is from a hardware store. There's nothing fancy about it. It's kind of closed on this end, just bend it out enough to get it around the loop, and it's open on this end. I'm going to close this end and then just have a good carabiner, but right now I just put it on like this, and then I tighten like 3 turns on the turnbuckle with a wrench, and it does fine for driving down the road, but I just want this closed for a little bit more security. So there you have it. That was kind of turning the Timberking 1220 into a trailer. I'm sure with most other sawmills you could do something similar. This one is easier in certain regards because it's steel, so if you have to weld anything to it, it's really easy to do it. I'm trying to keep everything as bolt-on as possible so you can unbolt it and return it to the factory settings. You'll see with the log loader there is one thing welded on. I'll show that in a later video. But all the trailer stuff is all bolt-on, so you can unbolt this and put it right back on the ground like nothing happened. Honestly, after I get the log loader going, I don't really see me doing that. It's way more stable than I was expecting it would be. I thought it would be a little bit, it would shimmy side to side, and it doesn't. It's really stable with the 8 different 2,000-pound jacks. It kind of stays pretty locked up. So there you go. Even with buying a welder from Harbor Freight, which I can't recommend enough, the titanium 125. You have about $1,000 into this. You can make it cheaper by buying scrap metal, obviously. Just where I'm at, like in the subdivision here, it's kind of difficult to do that, cutting and grinding. I cut a few things, but I try and keep it to a minimum here. But most steel shops, like the one I have close by, you just call them up. As long as you think about your cut list ahead of time, just give them a call and they'll cut everything for you. Then you just kind of pick it up and assemble it. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you some more videos later on. Like I said, I'm going to make it fully hydraulic. So all 7 spools back there on the hydraulic valves will have something. It'll have the chain turner, the back stops, the log loader. It's just going to take me a little while to get all that put together. So there you go. Hope this was helpful. Kind of how to turn a Timberking 1220 stationary mill into a portable mill. And we'll have some more videos later on. I'll show you what I'm doing, trying to make it all hydraulic later on. So stay tuned.